Hi everybody and welcome again. Today we're going to be looking at some very simple colouring pencil techniques. The paper I'm going to be choosing today is Bristol board 240 grams, so it's heavy enough not to be damaged by burnishing, smooth enough to have a neat finish without little tiny bumps, and also a little bit of grip so that the colouring pencil doesn't just skate across the paper. I'm also going to be using my favorite colouring pencils, which are these Caran Watercolour Supracolour pencil. There are different types of pencil that you can use. Some of them are watercolour, oil-based, wax-based, which vary in softness mostly, but also have a few different qualities, and at some point I'll make a video about that. But these ones, the thing that makes them different is that when you colour it in, you can also use a little bit of water on top of it to make it look like watercolour. Tip number 1. Keep pencil sharp even when doing large areas of colouring. Otherwise, you will likely have little white patches on the paper showing through. This is because paper has little bumps going up and down, and if you have a dull pencil, it won't really be able to get into those grooves. Tip number 2. For smooth layers, instead of going on up and down motions, try instead to do some more circular strokes, as the first one is likely to leave some lines behind. To show you a little bit slower, I'm actually doing a motion more like this, but very close to each other when I'm doing my pencil layers. Tip number 3, make sure that you create different layers of color in different directions as you go along. This does not mean changing the direction of your pencil all of the time. Instead, you should do a layer in one direction, then do another layer in a different direction, and covers your background very nicely. As you can see, the color becomes stronger and stronger and more vivid as I do different layers of pencil in different directions. Tip number 4. The way you hold your pencil really makes a difference. It doesn't mean that you can't create beautiful drawings the way that you like to hold your pencil. However, if you hold it really close to the front like this, I will have less control on the pressure that I am applying and less of a span of movement. The moment I hold it a little bit further back, I have more space to work with because I can get to different places as I move my wrist, and I will also have more sensitivity to the pressure and control my pencil much better. So when using colouring pencils, try to hold your pencil from the middle to the back. Further back is best when you're doing larger areas, and closer to the front if you're doing very fine detail. So let's see these techniques in action, which leads me to tip number 5. You can start your drawing with any color you like. However, I strongly recommend that you start with darker colors very lightly to start laying down your shadows. This is going to help you to map out your drawing and to start understanding and considering where different values are going to go. In this particular situation, I've already chosen 5 colors that I want to use for this gradient, and I start with the darkest one, putting a lot of pressure on it, and then slowly taking the pressure off to leave a little bit more space for the next pencil that I'm going to use. The very first layer of coloring pencils is actually very light. It's just to map out where the values are going to go and to help me understand how each color actually blends together. As I go along, I'll start to overlay each color on top of each other and go in different directions to make sure that the colors blend seamlessly and smoothly. Each layer I do goes darker and darker because I'm feeling more and more confident of where I want the colors to go. The very last layer will be my burnishing layer, which leads me to tip number 6. Learn the art of burnishing. With burnishing, we add layers upon layers of pencil to make the paper more and more saturated to the point where it cannot take any more pencil. This is important to take into consideration because that means that once you burnish, you cannot go back. It'll be very difficult to overlay colors after you do your burnishing. You can burnish in different ways, either by continuing to add different layers, which takes a long time, or at the end to add either a burnisher pencil layer or to use a lighter color. In this example, I use my lighter colors to burnish this gradient at the end. Once I burnish my drawing, it looks much more vivid, the colors look solid, and it's really well blended. So does that mean that when you burnish, there's no way back? Well, not quite. Tip number 7, how to erase burnishing from the paper. The best way of doing this, I have found, is actually to use a little bit of clear sellotape. Make sure that your sellotape isn't super sticky. You can do this by putting it on your clothes before you use it, but all you need to do is add the sellotape very carefully to the area that you want to erase. Use your finger to pressure it slightly, and as you remove it very carefully, you will see that the burnishing will actually disappear. You can do this a couple more times in order to take as much of the pencil as you want from the paper, but don't exaggerate because you might end up damaging the paper itself, and you definitely don't want to do that. After that, you can use your rubber a little bit, but part of those colors will likely stay there, so do be careful before committing to burnishing. Since we're using watercolor color pencils, I want to show you what will actually happen if you use water on those pencils. In order to do this, we are actually going to change your paper because, tip number 8, your paper is incredibly important. It's just as important to have the correct paper as it is to have the correct pencils, if not more. I'm going to use a watercolor paper, the hot press one, which is usually a little bit smoother. I'm going to add a little bit less pigment as I did before, because the water you'll see is going to make those colors incredibly vivid. Just to show you how important paper is, look what happens when we use the Bristol board. You can see the strokes much more, and it's not quite as smooth as the watercolor paper is. When creating a coloring pencil drawing, you also want to make sure that you can't see the graphite pencil underneath your drawing. The best way of doing this is erasing them with either a putty rubber. If you only have a normal rubber, you can also use the side to very lightly and gently take off the excess pencil. If you're anything like me, as you use your color pencils, there will definitely be colors that are going to disappear much faster than others. You shouldn't put these pencils in the bin. You can buy an extension like this, which can be used as a continuation of your pencil and therefore make them last much longer, and you'll still be able to use your favorite colors. So even a teeny tiny pencil like this can still go on to do beautiful pieces of work. So as we discussed, we're going to start with the darker values in this eye to make sure that we know where the different colors are going to go. Go on to the middle and then lighter ground and build them up bit by bit. Once you have a good foundation that you're happy with, you can use a little bit of tissue around your finger to blend those colors together, as it's going to help you to have a very good base for your drawing. However, you should absolutely avoid using just your fingers. This is because our skin produces oil, so if you add that to your coloring pencil, you are actually damaging your drawing, the pencil, and the paper as well. So as you try to put other layers on, it's actually not going to grip as well. Once you're happy with your base, it's time to move on and to continue adding the darker tones, middle tones, and lighter tones. You will see that the color that I get at the end is very different from the color that I'm getting now. I know which color I'm using to burnish. I know it's going to make my drawing go much more towards the pink. So I try to make it a little bit more yellowish and reddish underneath so that afterwards it doesn't just go dull. When I don't feel very confident with my drawing, instead of trying to do all of it at the same time, I choose different areas to develop. In this situation, I chose the upper part of the eye because I wanted to make sure that I was getting the correct colors and the right blending. This helped me boost my confidence to then continue with the rest of the drawing, knowing that I was able to achieve a really good result. So don't feel like you need to do layer by layer in the whole of the drawing. It's absolutely fine for you to go to one area and work on it until you feel quite comfortable that you reach the result that you want, and then move on. As you can see as I go along, I haven't really used any black or white. Avoid white and black as much as you can, unless those areas are just white or black. White and black make your colors very dull and very pastel, and can completely suck the life out of your drawings. Also, that means that if you have an area that is in fact black, you won't really reach the contrast that you want because you've already used it everywhere else on the drawing. So instead, try to use colors like brown, blue, mixed together with the colors that you want to use to make the darkest areas, and choose instead maybe a light yellow. In this case, I used the cream color to do the lightest areas. By using black just where I need it, the pupil of the eye really stands out and draws you into the drawing. Even when drawing skin, you shouldn't be scared of using texture. Texture is present in every single thing that you see, so you should try to emulate it in your drawing. So in this case, I'm doing little tiny wrinkles and also some freckles, as well as showing the direction of the skin by the way I use my pencil strokes. One of the textures that pupils find very difficult to do is hair. A very simple way of making it look more three-dimensional is by using a lighter color to begin with to do a few strokes to map out where the hair is going to be, and then go in with some darker colors. That's going to make it look more like the little hairs that are lighter are either further away or out of focus, which emulates the way that you actually look at things. Finally, don't be afraid of using highlights. Of course, most of your highlights are going to come from having left some areas a little bit lighter with the pencils that you are using. However, you will need sometimes to use a white pen, marker, or gouache to add some extra highlights that are a little bit stronger. And here you go, the final drawing. I will put a video up to show you the full process of creating this, but I hope this will help you to understand a little bit more about color pencils and some of the tips that you pick up when you have a lot of experience with them. So, best of luck, and I look forward to seeing what you create with this new knowledge.